Hello and welcome to this short featurette on this absolutely gorgeous mid-August Sunday morning where the temperature is just 13 degrees. 2 weeks ago it was 33 degrees. Love it. Right, okay, this little featurette is all about Triumph Stag and Range Rover Classic indicator and hazard light circuits, specifically those circuits which contain one of these things. So the latest Stags from about mid-1972 or late 1972 onwards came with these. All Range Rover Classics from 1970 came with these. But also there were different types of hazard light switch also in the Range Rover Classic. Watch the video, it might help you because I'll explain to you what the circuits are and how to fix the problems you might have. Enjoy the video. So let's look at a standard circuit for the simplest form of indicator flashing unit. You've got a positive feed. Okay, that then goes into a unit here, flashing unit. Okay, you have the flashing unit on the feed before the switch. Then you have the switch. How do you draw a switch? I'm just going to put a toggle on the top of it. Alright, there you go. There's a toggle on the switch. That's a switch. Then you have wires which go out to the various bulbs. Okay? So when you flick the switch, depending on which way the switch is going, it will indicate and allow the bulbs to go. And it's actually the feed to the switch that pulses. Okay, and sends the pulse down to the bulbs. So there's a number of things that can stop your indicators working. It could be the feed, it could be high resistance, it could be an earth, it could be the bulb itself, it could be the switch, and it could be the flasher. You can actually diagnose the whole circuit really very easily. If the bulb won't light at the end, but you're picking up 12 volts, then you've got high resistance somewhere. So one of the connectors or the switch is turning all of the current into heat, high resistance, and I think that's the right way around. I'm going back like a long time now to my physics lessons, but basically high resistance circuit will show 12 volts when there's no load. As soon as there's any load, like a bulb, then that voltage will drop down to 0, which is why the bulb doesn't light. Okay? If the bulb is very lethargic, similar situation, it could well be that there's a high resistance point somewhere on the circuit. It could be there's a dodgy earth here at the bulb. You need to make sure that there is a good earth. There's an earth. Has to be a good earth because otherwise it won't complete the circuit. If you've got a plastic bodied car like a Reliant Scimitar or something along those lines, because I'm pretty sure they have a similar sort of circuit, they use Lucas Electrics, you need to make sure that the earth is in place. There's nothing wrong with creating your own earth using a nice big fat jump lead. So if I am faced with a problem and I really don't understand where an earth is coming from, I will create an earth from the bulb housing directly back to the battery. There's a nice battery. Okay? And I'll create an earth that goes directly back to the battery. And if the situation is resolved, then I know it's the earth point for that bulb that's causing me the problems. Flasher units, especially more modern ones, especially those that come in little green boxes and are available on various auction sites that are made to the cheapest possible bloody tender, they do fail. You can get different versions. There's ones with the kind of the bimetallic kind of strip that tick 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 tick, and there's more solid state versions. I don't favour either in particular. There are some that have 3 terminals. Now if they've got 2 terminals they don't require an earth. If they've got 3 terminals you must earth them. If you don't earth them they don't work. So sometimes the flasher unit will need an earth if it's got 3 terminals. Okay. So that is a basic, very basic indicator circuit. By joining these 2 wires together, by the way, on the top of the flasher unit, so you've got the feed and you've got the wire to the switch. If you join those 2 wires together and it all works but the lights don't flash, then you know your flasher unit is out. Okay, and that's a fairly simple fix. If the switch is failing, there are other ways you can light up the individual circuits, but I think you're digging a bit deeper than I want to go into in this video. But because obviously the switch takes a feed and then sends the feed down to 2 different circuits, left or right. I don't know why I've drawn 3 wires there, so let's say we've got left hand and we've got right hand. Now, in Lucas terms, the kind of the wiring colours, they're all fairly consistent, but I'm not going to name wiring colours on this. You have to refer back to the wiring diagram in your manual. This is a Haynes manual here, but this is the same wiring diagram as they use in the factory manuals as well. So refer back. So if I start quoting wiring colours for a Range Rover, it might not be the same as another application, and then you guys are going to get it all wrong. You need a bit of basic knowledge on this. So that is a basic circuit. Now, let me see if I can draw out how, because from about, well, 1970 for Range Rovers, but 1973 was when the hazard lights came in on Triumph Stags. I don't know when the legal requirement for a hazard light came in, but it certainly wasn't on the Mark 1 Stag. So, hazard lights. Basically, you've got the problem in that you've got two circuits that need to use the same bulb. So we're going to draw all of the indicators on both sides down as a single bulb. These are the indicator bulbs. Lots of them. The only reason I want to draw it as one big bulb is because there are a number of circuits. So we've got the situation whereby, let's draw it from a hazard perspective. So we have got a bloody great big hazard light switch. I'm going to draw it as a big circle because we've got lots of terminals on this thing. And then into that switch we've got two feeds. We have got a, let's do this one up here. This one is ignition controlled. And this was battery controlled. And the reason you've got two feeds on this switch is because no cost accountant in any car company would have ever allowed to have a complete set of circuit wires going to each of the corners of the car. So you have two wires going to each indicator. It just wouldn't have worked. I'm not even sure the circuitry would have worked. So what they've basically got, we've got this big kind of cut-off switch here, which will divert power into either the indicator circuit, yep, or the hazard circuit. Same bulbs, all right? Just, I know I've done it as two bulbs, but same bulbs. Let's do that line up to there. Same bulbs. Ignore that. So on the battery controlled circuit, we've got a flasher unit. We've got a separate flasher unit for the hazard lights and the indicator circuit. This is quite common. So if you think you found a flasher unit for the indicators and it's not ticking, it might be the hazard warning light. And the clue to that would be the on a Lucas circuit, a battery controlled wire is brown. So if there's a brown wire going into the flasher unit, then it's for the hazard lights. If it's some other colour, then it's likely to be the indicator circuit. So for instance, for a Range Rover circuit, I think that the feed is green and yellow. This is for a Range Rover. So the feed is green and yellow, so it's not, it's diffused as well, blah-de-blah-de-blah. Is it green and yellow? Just double check that. Yes, it is green and yellow. Right, now, what actually happens inside this switch then? Because basically, we've got two circuits. When the ignition switch is on, both of these circuits are live. But depending on whether you operate the switch or not, depends on whether it sends the power through to the indicator circuit or just lights up all of the indicator bulbs. Now, let's take a closer look at the switch now. Hopefully we can see this. This is a fairly standard bit of, I think Lucas make these. Where is it? It's ever so standard. There's no brand name on it at all. As you can see, there's a bunch of wires going into the bottom of it. Okay, now, the bunch of wires, there's three that are important here. I've forgotten that one. We've got the ignition control feed, which on this I think is green. So it's a fused ignition control feed, and this is on the Range Rover again. So there's a green wire there. There he is, green wire. Okay, and then we've got the battery control feed, which should be a, oh, because it comes via the flasher unit. So the flasher unit is brown, and then from the wiring diagram, I actually said I wasn't going to go into bloody colours here. Then it goes into light green, pink. Okay, so you've got two terminals on this flasher unit. One's brown, one's light green, pink. Light green, pink then goes straight to this unit here. Okay, so how does this then break it down? And I'll tell you what, there's no ECUs involved in this, there's no relays, there's no nothing. Okay, it's a really, really, really simple device. I don't even know if I can draw it because it's actually three-dimensional. When I'm looking around the edge of this, I can see terminals here. Hopefully you can see. I'm working in the middle of the page. I am working in the middle of the page. You can see terminals. So the terminal there, terminal there, terminal there, terminal there, terminal. And as I'm going around this thing, you notice some of these are short and some are tall, looking at the side of the unit. Okay? One of them hasn't got anything on it at all, and that's a tall one. Don't worry about that. That's not an issue. There's a big lump of something that died there on there, I think. Oh, yeah, it's a bogey or something. Right, it wasn't a bogey, that was gross, Richard. Actually revolting. Okie dokie. Right, so on here we can identify, as I have done already, the green live feed that goes into the switch for the ignition controlled indicator circuit. Now if we follow that one up, we see that one goes up to a short wire. Okay, and then if we keep looking around that, we'll then find the feed which goes around to the indicator flasher unit. So if I whiz around, I'll find another short one. There it is, and that's green and yellow. So so when the plunger is pushed in, i.e. you don't want the hazard warning lights, that terminal, green and yellow, and that terminal, green, are connected, and they're connected via this contact ring on the end of the plunger. You can see the end of the plunger. As I operate it, you can see there's a plunger, and the plunger, the tip of that, has got some copper on it. And all that's doing is creating a contact between that circuit and that circuit there. And by pushing it in, we're then isolating all these other circuits because they're hanging in free air now. So it's really, 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 really simple. So what generally happens is you don't use the hazard circuit an awful lot. So when you actually come to pull this thing out, what you'll find is, you pull it up to the hazard circuit and all of these long contacts are all furred up and dirty. Okay? Now you don't need to go berserk pulling these things apart, you really don't. I tend to use a little electrical contact cleaner, and if they're really bad, I'll lob them into an ultrasonic tank to clean all the terminals. So I'll push it down because we generally know the indicator circuits are working quite well, and that will clean all of the tips of all of these kind of contacts here. I try not to bend them around too much. They are copper, they will break off, and that's going to make you unhappy. So if we actually look now, we'll assume, oh shit, I put a cheap, nasty, cheapo eBay ignition component on my car, and I'm on the N4 in one of those fucking managed motorway sections, and I've broken down. My car's stopped because I was trying to save some money and my ignition component packed up on me. Or, I don't know, I've got the wrong carburetor and the car's flooded, or whatever. Your car's broken down, you're stuck on a motorway in one of those horrible managed motorway sections. So just before you exit the car and run for safety, because you do not want to be hanging around in that car, you pull the indicator, you pull the hazard warning switch, and it's going to alert anyone apart from a truck driver who's playing with his phone that your car's broken down on what should be the hard shoulder, but is actually lane 1. So first and foremost, you pull the hazard switch out if you can. If you can't pull it out, just get out of the fucking car. But when you pull the hazard switch out, that was unnecessary there, Richard. When you pull the hazard switch out, what you see happen is the contact ring now has joined up all these other longer pins. So they're now all become a part of a big old circuit. So here we've got the green and pink feed, which is this one down here. So it's brown to the flasher unit, and then it's light green and pink feed into the switch, okay? And that then joins up now. So that joins up with nothing on that one, because that was blank. This one here is green and white, and this one here is green and red. Okay, and there's no others. Okay, now green and white, if I remember rightly, is the right-hand indicators. Right-hand indicators. And green and red is the left-hand indicators. So if when you pull your hazard warning switch out, only one side starts flashing, whichever side it is that's not flashing, the terminal up here has either got a broken wire on it or the terminal's corroded. Okay, if none of them flash, then there's something gone wrong, so it'll either be down to the wire not feeding around, or there's something wrong with the plunger. Now, these things do come with a nice handy connector on them that pretty much always look like this. I think even on the Stags they look like this, but it's kind of a much stumpier cable because it sits behind the dash. So if you wanted to test this circuit, I mean, working on the other end of this, the receiving end, the loom end, let's say, if you were to get a safety pin or a jump wire or test wire or something and wedge it in between the light green and pink, make sure you don't earth it out, because otherwise it's going to zzz, and the green and white or the green and red, then you should get those lights on and flashing, okay, because that will include the flasher unit. Similarly, if you find your indicators aren't working, if you were to find on the connector the green wire and the green and yellow wire and bridge those two, so on this, if I put this connector together, I can actually put a I don't know, safety pin or a paper clip between those two when it's connected together and join these two together, okay, and that's then going to provide power up to the indicator flasher unit, okay. These things, they do play up, but they're normally fixable. You don't have to take them apart, you just have to clean them. Electrical contact cleaner and so forth. Now there's one wire I've not explained yet, and that's this one here, the earth wire. And the only reason you need the earth wire is because one of the last feeds inside this goes directly to a little bulb. When you unscrew the cap, there's a little bulb under here, and that flashes on and off, along with the indicator telltales on the dash. They flash on and off as well, or they should do, when you've got the hazard lights on, okay? And that bulb needs an earth. That's the only reason there's an earth on the switch. So we'll pop that back on there again. We won't do it up too tight. So that's it. That is, because someone's asked me, and this one had a problem. We'll see if it still has. Someone asked me how these hazard light circuits work, and it's quite common for, you know, you just recommissioned your car, be it a Stag, Range Rover, whatever else, Reliant Scimitar, whatever else uses these kind of Lucas hazard light switches, and you pull the hazard lights on and they sort of work in a half-assed fashion, or they're really slow, and you think, oh my God, really? And this is all MOT test points as well. And then you put it back to indicators and they don't work at all. Well, that's because the terminals here and here are furred up. So like I say, it's just a case of cleaning things up, and if you clean things up, then cushy. I tend not to go in here with files or abrasives or anything that's particularly nasty. You start filing these tips, then you're going to have problems. One thing you can do, and I have done it in the past, using a biro of course, is to push these terminals in. They don't really give much. But what we can do now, I think I'm going to plug this back into Bob and see if this is working now, because the indicators are working, but they were lethargic and the hazard lights were not working at all. So let's right, here we go into Bob. Now, on the Stag, the controls up here behind the dash, so you kind of have to take the four wooden screws off to get access to the terminals. On the Range Rover, it's fitted up behind the trim that goes underneath the dash on the driver's side, and there's just one connector, and I'll plug the connector in if I can. Bit ham-fisted, Richard, but I can't really see what I'm doing. There's a flasher unit there. Right, it's one flasher unit, and this one has got a green and red and green and yellow wire to it, so that's going to be for the indicators. So the other flasher unit for the hazards must be up at the top. Now, by pulling this out, the battery's connected, I should get a hazard circuit, and I'm not getting any hazard circuit at all. Okay, let's just check the indicators are working. So we'll come up here. I've got the my big test light here. Okay, so ignition on. The indicators are working. Don't worry about the lethargic nature of this. The engine's not running. It's only got like, it's probably barely got 12 volts in this battery. But they're both running at the same speed. Now, this flashing unit down here does have 3 terminals on it, but this isn't one of the, well, it's got 4 terminals on it. This isn't one of the styles that normally you would earth. But it works. I'm inclined to leave it as it is. So, ignition off now. And let's get the hazard plunger down here. We'll pull the hazard plunger. And we're getting nothing. Right, so we'll close the hazard plunger off. Let me get my... I've just got a little test light thing here with a bulb on it. They're very useful, these things. They really are. Let's find a suitable earth point somewhere. There is one up here. Oh, for fuck's sake, Richard. I need to... Let's do it off that, that'll do. Now, are we getting any voltage into... We're getting no voltage into the green and pink. No voltage at all to green and pink, which would explain why it's not working. So what I need to do now is go and find the flasher unit for this and find out whether the flasher unit is connected or not. Now, on these, because I know the flasher unit is normally up here. There it is. One flasher unit. Okay. And there he is. He's got a brown wire and he's got a green and pink wire. So, next thing I can check, sorry, flashing the camera around here, Richard. You can see it. Let's see if we got any voltage now to the brown wire. If I can get the test probe off. Ah, well, that's not very helpful, is it? We haven't got any feed from the brown circuit, then I don't know. Quite know where that's gone wrong. That's it. I've got to trace that brown wire back and see if I can work out why that's not working. So we've been able to diagnose that there's no feed into the hazard flasher unit, and therefore because of that it ain't never going to work. Right, fixed that. Now got a nice solid feed to the brown wire. Connect the brown wire up to the live and other feed, and we're getting nothing. So next thing I do, like I mentioned to you in the diagnostics, is join these 2 wires together. We'll start with the non-live feed and then we'll go to the live feed, and then we'll pull the switch out. Now we're getting the circuit. So it looks like the flasher unit is dead. I should now have all of the indicators are on. They're not flashing because there's no flasher unit in there. That looks quite successful. Coughity, coughity, cough. Telltales are on. So it looks like the flasher unit is dead. So let me now put the wires to the flasher unit, swap the flasher units over. Okay, so I don't know what this flasher unit is. This is one of the kind of later style flasher units, I think, for these Range Rover jobbies. I can't actually see the fucking terminals on this thing. Let's put those onto there and there. And pull the... So we know the circuit's working with the flasher. So the problem we've got is with this little unit here, little 12 volt flasher is dead. Has to HUD it. And if it has had it, then, you know, there's not an awful lot I can really do about that, is there? So let me now turn the ignition on. Sorry, I'm reaching up here around the camera. Yeah, flasher unit's dead. I had this on my Stag, oddly enough. So let's peel the cover back on this flasher unit now and see if we can work out what is going on with it. So back over to the bench. Oh, there's my telephone. Okay, so these little things, they're normally, they're non-serviceable, but, you know, let's have a look inside one. I don't know why it's not working. It's probably just shagged out. You can see there's a little bit of the aluminium case on the outside that's just peened over. So see if I can stab my fingers and get this thing open. They're normally quite easy to get into. Just the 4 tags. And then I should be able to pull the case off. There we are. Oh yeah, it's all looking a bit rusty and tragic in there, really. I don't know. You tell me. It's a mechanical switch, isn't it? I might just lob it in the ultrasonic tank and see if we can get it working again. Well, it certainly cleaned it up. I mean, there is a lot of crap on it. I don't want to go too close to it all because, I mean, there's little delicate wires and all sorts of shit in there. In fact, is that a delicate wire even connected still? I believe it is. That wire there might have burnt out. I don't know. I've never been in one of these things before. I'll plug it in and see if it works. The wire is disconnected at the top there. So I just think it's fucked, to be quite honest. I'm not going to bother with it. That wire there, which is some sort of high resistance kind of affair, looks like it's burnt out, but I think that's what they look like. But you can see it's very clearly disconnected from the top up there, which is why it's not passing current through. I'll get another one. Can't be arsed with it. I shall report back via the channel Bob. Hope you enjoyed that. Well, at least you know a bit more about indicator circuits now, if nothing else, and also diagnosing very, very, very lightweight faults. I mean, I didn't go into any huge detail about problems you might have with the switch or with the loom, etc., etc., etc. I'm just looking at the basic components. Look at the easiest things to fix first before you start tearing looms apart. Anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Buy me a pint if you want to. There's a link down here. Cheers.